sorry, just typing one thing. Okay. Hello, Sam! Yeah, there you are, sir. Well, actually, I was gonna come on stream anyway, but there's been a little flame war going on in Social Galactic, which kind of sucked me in. It's actually a really good one. And I think it's Chad BH that was just holding his own, surrounded by heretics, just bashing away with his two-handed sword and taking scalp. It's really quite a little stream. Hello, Joseph Cruz. I don't know if you, yeah, well, thanks. I'm not partial to beards, but the wife said she wants to, I don't know. She's like into it for a little bit. I don't know how long that will last. But, you know, that's fine. She's yeah, oh, I don't want to get into that, but yeah, I don't care. You know, if she occasionally wants to pretend I'm someone else, I've got no issues with that. I mean, sometimes she wears wigs. You know, it's fine. Hello, AE. Yeah, it's quite a late one, but I've been doing some. I'm actually exhausted. I've been going since early this morning and busy doing stuff that I'll tell you guys about after Christmas, but my back is kind of shot. My upper back, which is a combination of writing because I'm still finishing off another short book I want to get out as soon as possible. And all the ebooks, by the way, are available on the ebook store. So if you are still in time to get some stuff for Christmas, and apparently you can buy the ebooks on, I'm going to put you guys the link here so that you can see it. You can buy these as gifts as well. So I'm not sure exactly how it works because I haven't bought my own stuff out of the site, but people have. And you can, there's a gift option, which means, I'm guessing, I don't know, that you can email it direct to whoever you bought it for. And there are instant downloads, so you're still in time for Christmas. In case you don't know what, because the Nazi Moon one is the blurb for it assumes that you kind of know what like Overlords of Mars is. If you don't know, go and look on Amazon. You can find Nazi Moon on Amazon if you want the hard copy as well. And you know, if you go and read the Overlords of Mars stream series, then you can read up a little bit more about what it's about. There's a lot of history in there and a lot of science. And yes, it's wrapped in a the Nazis didn't quite die out fiction. Well, or is it? Anyway, enough about that. The little Social Galactic flame war that was going on was really interesting. And basically, Chad, by being correct, essentially pissed off like one of the mods at Social Galactic who's like, "You're lying!" and he's not. Hello, Scorpio. We've got Merry Christmas to you too, sir. We've got the Gamma in Chief. We're honored that the Gamma in Chief bestows us with his presence and this. Pardon me, I just got to blow my nose, which is, as the Japanese know, disgusting. So I'll go off camera. Yeah. So, I'm actually very happy to see Scorpio. You know, I know that he's supposedly our frenemy or whatever, but I never wish anything ill to Scorpio. He's a good little Gamma in Chief. Anyway, another thing I noticed on that little, I don't know if it's on the same thing or not, but that fake Catholic deacon that I've blocked because I've proved him a liar for like 2 years in a row with literally nothing. He's got nothing. And now that he's blocked, he's apparently posted like, "Oh, Kurgan, you're wrong because you've missed out on Canon 2359 that says, you know, like, even if a guy falls foul of 188.4, he still has to have a warning. And it doesn't, of course. As usual, Canon 2359 doesn't say anything like that. So I'll be making a little blog post about that too. But I've actually got a pretty decent blog post that's not finished yet. So it'll go up if I feel like it. If I'm still awake after the stream, I'll put that up, and then I'll put up another little blog post, or one or the other first, about just nailing that fake Catholic deacon again. Because it's amazing. These guys will just, you know, it's like if you tell a guy, you know, you prove to somebody like 2 and 2 is 4, and then a week goes by, and the same guy comes up and says, "Oh, guys, by the way, yeah, you know, 2 and 2 is 5, and I proved it, and yeah, the Kurgan guy is wrong, and he admitted he's wrong. He said it's 5 as well." You know, it's just like, what? Like, normal people are like, what the hell? You know, what's going on here? 12 of you, just like the apostles. Plus, you know, Andy Scorpio, Judas. Nah, man, it's Christmas. I'm not gonna. I hope Scorpio like makes some commentary and adds something. I know that you'll probably, I don't know, try and convert it into some attack, but whatever, man. You know, actually, to be fair, I think Scorpio and I were supposed to do a stream about. We're gonna do an intervention into his Catholicism, and I don't think I'm saying anything that we agreed not to say. So I don't think I believe that his statement was along the lines of, yeah, I wouldn't mind doing that, but not really. I'm not really ready yet, because I kind of know I'm not really a good Catholic, but I just want to, you know, kind of keep being not a good Catholic for a bit longer. I kind of get where it's coming from. I was like that for some years. I did want to take the opportunity to wish glad tidings to you, your family, and the audience. Thank you, sir. And the same to you. I wish you and your family very well, um, especially your children, your daughters. And if I've missed some children, let me know. No, I genuinely wish the Gamma Chief well. He's, you know, he's got his odd hobby of trying to blast people like me for some reason. I don't know. Maybe it's not me. I don't know. I think we have a relatively friendly relationship. I don't actually know what the was it the Reddit channel that he's the boss of. I think. I don't know. I haven't gone to it yet. I haven't seen it in a long time, so I don't know if they're what they're saying about me. But you know, good Christmas to all of you Gammas, wherever you are. May you find God and happiness. Oh, Elia, hello, sir. Just popped in to wish a blessed Christmas to Kurgan and the henchmen. Off to bed. I'll catch the stream later. And a happy Christmas to you too, sir. Chad BH. Oh, here he is. Hail Kurganen. Thank you. No, this is a crusader coming back from the wars, and we want to hear all about it, because I haven't actually read the whole thing. I just fired off a couple of quick, you know, artillery fire to support my brave crusader on the orc front there. It's just, it's pissed off one of the mods to the point that he got threatened with a ban. I don't know if she's actually gonna be banned or what, but it's quite hilarious, especially since she's 100% right. And all he did to piss off the Protestants is saying, like, well, you know, Bergoglio's a Protestant, which I was actually going to comment on that, because in fairness, in absolute fairness, because we are Catholic, and so we are correct. You know, we use the truth as our weapon. I don't think it's really fair to say that Bergoglio is a Protestant. Bergoglio is a Satanist, as are all the fake clergy that pretend to be Catholics. There is the argument that some of the fake clergy could be fooled, ignorance that, went through the seminary with sodomy and whatever, and just didn't quite realize that it wasn't the real Catholic Church, which is pathetic as an excuse. Maybe there are some people like that, but prudence dictates, as cum ex apostolato feature from Paul IV in the 1500 or something. I think it was Valentine's Day, perhaps, that he said it in the year 1500, whatever, or 1400, whatever. But anyway, heretics, people who, he was specifically referring to heretics, but I absolutely believe it applies to imposters and fake Catholics and Satanists pretending to be Catholics, should be deprived of all natural human kindness. So, there. Now, Chad, because I am a little bit blocked, some of the recurring, like the Catholic deacon is blocked, but I saw somebody sent me a screenshot that like he put in something about me being wrong about Canon 188.4 as usual, and it's again, I will actually post on it. So I don't know if he's in the chat because there's a couple of like replies to people or things that I've either blocked or whatever because they're moronic. But there was also a reference to a meme which I didn't think I see on the thread, or maybe it was referring to another thread. I'm not sure. So anyway, it's an interesting little, and the thing is about the Protestants, they're so wrong. They're not even in the ballpark. So there's one guy there, the Valtendor guy, who just says such stupid, idiotic, moronic things. And I'm starting to think that he's just that stupid and that ignorant, which is astonishing but shouldn't be surprising. Professor Cipolla is always right, because he's basically spouting off, these definitive statements on a subject that he's absolutely, completely ignorant of, and making these, statements as if he knew what the hell he was talking about. For example, he says, like one thing that just proves how retarded he is. He says like, oh, well, I don't know why some random Catholic clergyman, some priest, should be able to define what a Protestant is better than a Protestant themselves. Well, duh! What's rule number one of the Catholic Church? No salvation out of the Catholic Church. What does that mean? Well, it means that the only Christians are Catholics. Everybody else who says they're Catholic and they're not Catholics, or sorry, everybody else who says they're Christian but are not Catholic, are not Christian. As far as the Catholic Church is concerned, there's only one type of Christians: Catholics. Everybody else is either a heathen, a pagan, a heretic, or an apostate. That's it. Or a schismatic. That's it. There's only 5 classifications of creatures, people outside of the Catholic Church. So Catholic, Christians. Anything else, you're either a pagan or a heathen, which they don't even fall into being Christian, really. Pagans don't exist anymore. They're basically, well, I suppose, if you're a Shintoist or a believer of some Papua New Guinean, Pachamama demonic rites or whatever, they're actual real pagans are essentially devil worshippers. In good faith, probably. They don't know they're worshipping demons, but as far as Catholics are concerned, that's what they're doing. Heathens are people like what I was, which are like, not really this, not really that, kind of agnostic, but believe in something, but are not really defined it or whatever. And then you've got schismatics, the Eastern Orthodox, the Copts, and that's it. The rest are apostates, people that used to be Catholic and then stopped being Catholic, or heretics, people who say they are Christians but reject the Catholic Church. So that's it. Oh, there you go. Chad says, I know Valtendor personally, and you're right. Good guy, not malicious or purposely deceptive. Well, that's good to know. I'm glad you mentioned that, because he is abysmally stupid, though. So he's saying, well, how could a Catholic priest define Protestants better than Protestants? Well, because a Catholic priest, by definition, knows how to define Christianity, because by definition, a Catholic priest is a Christian priest. He's the only type of Christian priest that can exist. So he's supposed to teach Christianity, i.e. Catholicism, and that's the whole point. He knows what is a Protestant and what isn't. He knows what is an actual Christian and what isn't. And anybody professing to be a Christian who is not Catholic, at best, is a Protestant. Because at worst, they are a heretic, a deceiver, a liar, like Bergoglio, a Satanist. Your takedown of Odin Fangs was a good lesson in rhetoric. Yeah, well, it is. Because, yeah, just very uninformed. But you see, this is the point. Okay, let's give Valthendor the absolute benefit of the doubt. And I believe you. I'll take you. We have to be charitable. So Valthendor is not evil. He's not deceptive. He's just abysmally ignorant about Catholicism. On what basis does he then think he has the right, or does he think he have the reason to open his mouth? Why? I mean, it's like it's as if I was gonna like spout off about the details of opera singing. I mean, like, I would never do that. I don't know the first thing about opera or opera singing. I don't know anything about music. Like, why would I opine on that? At best, I could say, well, I heard this opera singer and I heard that opera singer, whatever, Pavarotti and the woman that sang the alien blue diva song in The Fifth Element. I forgot her name. Whoever she is, and Pavarotti, I prefer her. That's all I can say. And I have said that. I've said she's got an amazing voice. I don't know anything about anything, but I like that one more. That's it. That's all I can say. But don't ask me to explain why or on what basis or the timbre. Apparently, and I was told this by a girl that I dated briefly, I have an ear that can perceive what do you say, tune, when somebody's out of tune or in tune, and apparently only 15% of people can do that. I didn't know this. I had no idea that I had this ability. But when we were, we saw each other briefly for a while. So anyway, we were walking along in Venice, and we passed a singer, a street singer, and I thought, God, she's fucking horrible. She's completely untuned. But everybody around was sort of thinking it was great, and I sort of knew that this girl was like she was in a choir, and she was almost semi-professional in her singing, and I was like, God, she's completely off tune or whatever. And she looked at me like, how do you know that? And I was like, well, I can hear it. She goes, but you said you don't know anything about music. I said, no, I don't. Said, but you can actually hear it. And yeah, she's terrible. I can't. It's like grating my it's like a bad sound. And she's like, do you realize that most people look around, everybody's enjoying it. I'm not, and you're not. But that's only like, and she told me, I don't know, whatever they've done apparently the tests or whatever, and only 15% of people can do this. But so I've got that going for me, but I'm completely ignorant of opera. I would never opine on it. So how can a guy that doesn't even understand the basic principle of Catholicism, the point of no salvation outside of the Catholic Church, on what grounds does this guy think that he has the authority or to express his opinion about anything to do with the rules of Catholicism? It's retarded. It's just, it's absurd. And Sir Hamster got all pissed off because basically got kind of taken out. And then he starts to accuse Chad of lying or of moving goalposts, and it's done nothing of the sort. But again, it stems from the Protestant thinking that he has knowledge to argue with when he doesn't. It's like they're cargo cultists. Ultimately, Protestants are cargo cultists. It's literally like, you know, a little kid, like when you're doing maths and you're trying to teach them maths or whatever, and then they come like, but daddy, I'm better because I can count to 10th billionth of 5. It's like, doesn't mean anything, you know. And I can count higher than you because I can count to 15th million 6s and 7s. Yeah. And you're like, okay, kid. You know, that's basically what they're doing. It's DTW says, Scorpio, delete your Reddit account for a New Year's resolution. I doubt he'll do that. He's probably invested most of his life in there. Yes, I'm having a bit of milk. Yeah, anyway. Oh, and another thing he said is like, well, there's an argument here about whether Sedis are real Catholics or whether the supposed Catholic Novus Ordo are real Catholic. No, there's no argument. That's why I wrote that 530-page book that has never been refuted and never will be, because I covered all the bases. That's it. The only Catholics left are Sedevacantists. And since only Catholics are Christians, the only Christians left are Sedevacantists. That's it. That's that. So, you know, I think that's the end of the zealotry argument, unless somebody else has got something going. When someone says they're Protestant, you know almost nothing about what they actually believe. Yeah, that's the other thing. Like Chad said, can you define what a Protestant is? And Valtendor, you know, to his credit, tried to give a pretty specific definition, which of course covers, I don't know, maybe 10% of Protestants, if that, because it's absolutely retarded. I mean, he's saying, oh, people that, you know the Apostles' Creed or the Nicene Creed, but don't have to know it. So what's your definition again? and it's like, they should agree with it when presented with it, but they don't have to know it. You telling me that the transgender bishop that was on the news recently knows what the Apostles' Creed is or the Nicene Creed and agrees with all of it? Really? Well, I've got news for you. Or the Jehovah's Witnesses, or the Mormons, you know? That's why there are 40,000 denominations of Protestants. And, you know, I don't believe Chad was even trying to be offensive. He was just stating a fact. He was saying, whatever your definition of Protestant is, Bergoglio will agree with it, because he would. I wrote a post not too long ago, which you can go on the blog and Google, you know, if you go on the search me thing and you type in, you know, Protestantism is Satanism. And it is, because by definition, what is a Protestant? A Protestant, what are they protesting? They're protesting the Catholic Church. So what are they protesting? They're protesting Christianity. They are rebelling against Christianity, because the only Christianity is Catholicism. So who started the rebellion against Christianity? Lucifer. Lucifer was the first Protestant. He rebelled against the true, holy, apostolic, Catholic Church instituted by God. He rebelled against the rules of God, and the Church follows the rules of God. So Lucifer was the first Protestant. Now, does that upset Protestants? Undoubtedly. Is it a bit of a rhetorical function? Sure. But is it based in hardcore dialectic? Yes, it is, which is why it pisses them off so much, because they can't hide from the truth. It's like, Is whole milk commonly available there? I'm not sure exactly what you mean by whole milk, but this is technically biological whole milk, yes. But if you mean milk freshly squeezed out of a cow, it's available in little villages and stuff. It's not like banned like in the States or whatever, but you probably have to know somebody to get it, which I actually do know somebody. So I'm gonna go see him over the holidays to get some meat, because he's got his own animals and stuff. They butcher their own animals, so I know that meat's gonna be, you know, even better than the one I get in the supermarket. But you know, food in Italy is still pretty decent so far. Today, though, I swear to God, I've fired Stinger missiles. Today they flew about 10 planes shooting chemical crap over my fucking house. And I was talking to the postman while I were outside because it's like, look at this fucking checkerboard. And I found out that my postman is yet another, like, he's one of us. Um, and he's a writer. He apparently just wrote a book in Italian, so it won't be much use for you guys. But so I'm gonna, and I told him, look, we should get together, like bring your wife around, and we'll have a little party or something. There's a couple of friends I want to invite around maybe the 4th, the 5th of January, like have a bit of a thing, just to like the people that think the way we think, because we need to make community with these guys. But and as soon as I mentioned the planes, he goes, "Yeah, what are they shooting? What are they actually injecting?" I was like, "It's heavy metals and it's all this." So he started asking me why, and I started explaining my theories on it, which you know, I'll, those of you that have read or have bought the Surviving the Current Zombie Apocalypse, which is a whole role-playing game. It's not just and it's available as a PDF, so you can buy it and print it out in full color, or you can buy the book. Um, the book's a bit more expensive because it's on Amazon, and it is full color interior as well. So I think on Amazon it goes for like $28 or something, and on my ebook store it goes for like, I don't know, I think it's under $20. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the exchange rate is because I do everything in pounds. So AE goes, and Canada, it's illegal to sell unpasteurized milk. It's amazing, isn't it? It's what the government is doing to protect you. And yeah, it's proliferating the idiots, really. I mean, I think I've said it before, but there was back when the internet was new, early 90s, there was the alt.dot forums where it was alt.guns, which was alternative forum about guns. And there was a guy who like, the alt.dot forum, the alt.guns forum was about, pro-gun guys versus anti-gun guys. And it was people from all over the world, because whoever had access back then, it was a lot of Americans, but it was also like, people from South Africa, where I was at the time, Italy, whatever. And there was one guy who made the best little essay. I wish I'd saved it somewhere, which was like, look, this is retarded. All the people that are arguing against guns, up until 200 years ago, it was normal for any man that left the safety of his home and village to go about armed. Whether with a sword, a stick, or a gun, it was just normal. And the only reason that there are people today that say, oh, like we shouldn't have guns or whatever, is because those people with guns went out, conquered the world, civilized it, pacified it, killed all the threats, whether they were man, beast, or nature. And of course, the village idiot, who was a village idiot, and so everybody knew it was unsafe to leave a weapon with that guy, he stayed in the village. And unfortunately, those men that went out and conquered the world and made things better, they often died in wars, fighting, building, while the village idiot stayed in the village and then found somebody to have sex with and reproduced. And they continued to reproduce. And apart from the great culling of 1972, which was when the stepladders still didn't have like warning signs that killed a few of them off, these bastards have continued to reproduce like rabbits, and now they outnumber us. And it's like, it's a very succinct but very on the nose kind of description of things. Sam Wereb says, I'd like to know everything about growing olives. I know already that it's hard to do commercially. It's only hard to do commercially. Well, I'll tell you something. It's not hard to do commercially. I'm actually, if somebody in the United States or wherever, I don't care where on the planet, if you're going to be my man on that side, there is a gigantic business opportunity, because the area that I'm in has, no joke, got the best olive oil in the world. It's been voted the best olive oil in the world. The place that actually manufactures it is like 3 kilometers from my house. Best place in the world to make olive oil. My olive oil is literally the best in the world. And olive oil has got properties that are anti-inflammatory to a degree that I'm going to mention now because um, I watched a podcast of the Diary of a CEO guy, which he's got some real trash people on there sometimes, but he had this autistic guy whose name is Byron something, I forget. Some autistic guy who's like super obsessed with like living forever or whatever, and he like does all these blood tests and everything. Anyway, this guy's figured out that olive oil has got the best anti-inflammatory properties, anti-radical property. Like it's the best thing for you. And he says, oh, you should take a tablespoon of it every day, like with meals. So I started doing that for about 2 weeks. And I think you guys know I've had like an inflammation in both my elbows from like just swinging machetes and pulling things and digging and doing whatever. It totally went. I didn't even realize. Like after I had rested it though for about a couple of a month or so before, but it was still there. And it just disappeared, and I completely forgot about it. Then I got busy again, and now for about 2 weeks I didn't take it. I just whatever in food normally, but I didn't actually drink it like as a little thing. And my elbow started flaring up again, and then I remembered it, and I thought, oh, so now it's like I did it last night, and I again forgot today. Anyway, within half an hour of me taking a tablespoonful of pure olive, and my olive oil is unfiltered because that keeps all the phenotypes and everything. It fixes you up, and you can't buy this stuff like the olive oil that you buy in the shop that's a super virgin extra olive oil cold pressed. It's bullshit. That stuff is not the olive oil that I make or the people around here make. And I can get tons of that stuff. I can literally get like thousands of liters of it. So there is definitely a business opportunity for that as a health thing, as a yes, you can use it in food, and I use it for everything, but you can also use it to like fix your body up to a degree that is like unreal. I've tested it on my own body, and it's incredible. Um, Olives don't need a lot of. I mean, I've let my olives go wild, and a good friend of mine, his dad's got like 50 acres, like a couple of hours, 2 or 3 hours away from here, and he grows olives and stuff. And this year I've done nothing. I've not even bothered to collect anything because the hail that they sent us in July and whatever, it just destroyed everything. So all the flowers of the plants are dead. There was very few olives. But the year before, the 22, that when you collect the olives in 22, the oil is for 23. So the olive oil from 22 is, I still have plenty of it really. We did, I think it was 260 liters. His dad, who's got like 10 times the amount of land I've got, he did like 16 liters. And then like when his son was down there and was telling him, says, don't you learn from that guy? I don't like this idea, this guy that he doesn't put fertilizer on his plants, he doesn't even prune them, they're all just growing wild. That's not the way to do it. And his son was like, Dad, you're arguing what? That guy's olive trees are perfect. There's no bugs. He doesn't use insecticide. He doesn't use anything, and they just make olives. How is he wrong? And I want to learn more and more about that because clearly, when I try and farm, I kill things. So, it's just one has got a talent, and my talent is obviously homicidal in, in general, I guess. I don't know, because when I try and farm things, they die. So I want to try and leave them alone, because when I leave things alone, well, they seem to grow better. And plants grow by themselves anyway. So, I kind of want to help them along a bit, do whatever, kill the brambles, which are like my mortal enemy. But, you know, oh, there you go. That's AE says they did a study and tested, I think, world supply at random, and something like 90% of olive oil had little to zero olive oil or something like that. Olive oil mafia is strong. It's not that it's strong, it's that they use everything. So the olive oil that you buy in a shop has had the seeds of the olive oil, the actual, the kernel things crushed. It's had the pulp crushed and double crushed and then mixed with other oil. it's all just trash. Well, my olive oil, the only thing that's comes from, my olives is you squeeze the olives and the oil that comes out. That's it. And I can see the machines where it's been done. I know the guy that does it. He's a pretty cool dude. Although they do all the olive oil for this whole region. They do like thousands and thousands of liters every year. But um, and they also export and whatever. But there's definitely a market there. So and olive trees are pretty resilient. They're one of the few trees that you can dig out of the ground, transport it somewhere else, plant it, and it'll be fine. So yeah. And Sam, so I would suggest, just get yourself a couple of plants, buy plants that are already as big as you can afford to get them, as big as you can, and just shove them in the ground. And, there's some years, generally speaking, olive trees, I'm told, they do like, it's one every 2 years, sometimes 3 years that you get a decent um, harvest. But we've had a pretty decent harvest. The first year is just like I wasn't geared up to do it, and the second year I got some people to harvest it for me, and that's why we got quite a bit. But if I looked after my plants a bit more, if I could prune them properly, because they do need pruning, just in order to collect the olives. Also, it makes it easier. But the thing is, I've got like something like it's over 300 plants, and I can't do it by myself. It's just I don't have the time to do everything. But if they were pruned properly, my plants could easily produce 500 liters. You could conservatively got about 10 liters per plant, which roughly you need about 9 kilos, 10 kilos of olives uh, for a liter. So you need kind of 100 kilos of olives of a plant to get 10 liters. Um, so 500 liters um, of oil equates to roughly just under 5 tons of olives. But it's it is really good stuff. And but the food in Italy, even I was talking about, I've been buying these like ready-made soups because they're just quick. And when I'm working, whatever, I just zap one for 4 minutes and I can eat it. And she's like, oh, but it's like, and I'm like, yeah, but look at the ingredients, and the ingredients are like whatever's in the soup, like the if it's a carrot, what do you call the carrot and pumpkin or whatever, and you look in the ingredients and it's like carrot, pumpkin, olive oil, salt. That's it. So it's like actually quite decent stuff. Supermarket olive oil and honey are both outright scams in America. Yes, they are. America is absolutely horrible for food. Honestly, one of the reasons I wouldn't live in America is the food. Um, unless I was literally growing everything that I was going to eat in the United States, I couldn't live there. I couldn't. When I visited, I couldn't believe what they pass for food there. Do you guys know that you get American cheese in a supermarket? You can light it. You can take your lighter and set the cheese that you buy in the supermarket on fire and it'll burn because it's got so much macroplastics at this point. It's basically plastic, with cheese flavor, I guess. It's the food in America is absolutely, it's disgusting, and that's why. And by the way, it kills you guys. It like causes can like 20, oh, I believe something like 30 years ago, 25, 30 years ago, there was a statistics that I'd looked up that was 1 in 3 people in the United States died of cancer. That's 30 years ago. It's probably 1 in 2 now. And they couldn't figure out why. And, they were all, and then they said, well, people in Japan have got the longest lifespans and they're like the least affected by cancer. But then they did a study on, so because of this, they did a study on Japanese people that have moved to the United States over long periods of time. These were like long-term studies. They weren't like quick studies. And what they found is that after 5 years, I think it was 5 years or 3 years, I can't remember, it was 3 or 5 years, a Japanese person that had a perfect Japanese health in Japan moved to the United States, and after a few years, they fall statistically in exactly the same category as the rest of America. 1 in 3 will die of cancer. The food in the United States is super processed. It's all fat free, sugar free, and they put aspartame and I don't know, fucking car tires in it or something. I have no idea what the hell goes in your food, but it's an absolute disaster. I remember again, like 20 years ago already, reading that um, the average American, if he were to be, you know, chopped up and sold as meat, wouldn't pass the American regulations for meat that can be sold for consumption because the average American is so filled with pollutants and antibiotics and drugs and whatever that is just not fit for, wouldn't pass the consumption. Not that I'm saying you should be cannibals, obviously, but what I'm saying is, and the American rules for what is edible are so terrible that, but the average American body is just, you know. So I wouldn't live in the States just on principle alone. If you told me like, look, I don't know anything about whatever, I don't know, Belize. I think Belize is a pretty shitty, corrupt, fucking criminal-ridden country with some nice beaches. But if the food in Belize was, say, equivalent to, I don't know, maybe Brazil or Italy or whatever, and you told me that I had to choose whether I was going to live in the United States or Belize, I'd pick Belize just on the food alone, because the food that you guys have is horrific, and I feel sorry for you guys because it's everywhere. It's really hard to get away from it. And if you try and buy actual food, I don't know that it is actual food, but whether it is or isn't, it's really expensive, very hard to find. So yeah, it's tough. If you're not growing your own in the States, you got a bad thing. Oh, another announcement. I actually helped this dude to buy his house. So we now have the first um, immigrant, the first Sede hardcore who's bought property, again, a couple of kilometers away. I don't know if it's even a couple of kilometers from my place. He's got a nice little house. Um, I don't know if he's going to move in or rent or whatever. That's up to him. But um, it was a mission, and yes, I did help him, and I kind of want to get away from doing that because I mean, I do want to help people to move here if they're the right kind of, if they're sedevacantists and they're like hardcore zealots and they kind of think the same way as us. And there are a couple of guys I know, some might even be in the chat, that absolutely do want to do so, but it's not easy. It can be expensive, and especially families with kids. There's a bunch of people in the United Kingdom that we know that are really awesome people that I swear to God, if I won the lot, I'd just buy them a house. I'd just literally buy them a house and say, like, move next door, because the one family's got 7 kids, the other one has got like 5 or 6, I can't remember. Awesome kids, awesome parents, just good people, and I want my kids to be growing up around little kids like that, same kind of ages as well, really good people. And that's the whole point. That's what I'm building here. I don't care how long it takes. It'll take me the rest of my life. It's not it's like martial arts or writing or anything that you enjoy doing, that is a true calling or a skill or something. It doesn't stop. I haven't been training formally in martial arts now for a few years because, again, I moved and whatever. And I'm still training differently, like with my back being sore, I was trying to do the breathing properly and whatever. And now I'm thinking differently, like, about martial arts, because it doesn't end. Obviously, when you're a 90-year-old guy, you're not going to be able to fight off a hardcore trained 30-year-old in the same way. But then you won't, because you're a nasty 80-year-old dude who's been thinking about martial arts all his life. So you'll see the 30-year-old guy coming, even if you're a little bit blind and you need to wear your glasses. And then you'll end up being kind of like my dad, who's like, oh, that young man looks like he's coming here to rob me and kill me. Well, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I don't even shoot as well as I used to, but I can still put 2 or 3 in, like, core principles. Yeah. I missed him twice. Yeah. I guess I go to reload, just make sure that I go up close and personal and make sure he's dead. So, and this is the same. I'm going to build this community, and I know how things work. I know how insane it sounds, and even it sounds insane to like, but even my wife has argued with me about this. Like, what? I don't care about. I'm like, I don't care that you don't care. I care, and I care because I'm doing this again for our kids and so on. And now she's like, kind of started seeing it. So, but yeah, it can be hard and whatever. But, some insane scheme that everybody else thinks, oh, it's not gonna work. Again, I make this analogy between martial arts and whatever. When you're like wrestling with some guy and he's like, he knows some jujitsu, and he's just got you like in a way that like you can't really do anything, and you're just holding him off, but you can't get him either, and all you've got is this like little wrist movement that like you can tap him in like somewhere that's not even that hard or that dangerous, and you're just tapping that like one spot, and it's just a little crappy movement like this, right? Well, you keep doing that for 45 minutes, you're gonna make a hole. So it's just, you gotta keep persistent, just bang, bang, bang. I'm not giving up. I'm not quitting. I'm gonna keep doing the set of stuff. I'm gonna keep putting set of materials out there. I'm gonna keep harassing the heretics, and I'm gonna keep promoting. You wanna be a set of community? Be a set of community. Here I am. It'll come. It's if you build it, they will come. Whatever the field of dreams is. Except this is much more important than baseball, and it's actually a community that will mean something in time. The other thing that I'm doing is in this little village, I'm starting to really get to know who's who, and like, I've been here almost 3 years now, and it's like I haven't really connected with the people here because I've been so busy just in my own house and my own fields, and I'm still busy, but I try and get out there a little bit more. And I've had a really conversation with one of the ladies that works at the bar. She's got two little kids, kind of same age as our kids, and I just realized what an awesome lady she is, and she's again same sort of way of thinking and so on. So I'm connecting with these people, and then I'm gonna, no, let's just all have a little meetup. Let's have a little drink. Let's have a little dinner, lunch, whatever. And you start to figure out, some of these guys don't know anything about Sedvacantism or whatever, but they're like classically born into the sort of generic Catholic sort of miasma, even though they're not, hardcore Catholics or proper Catholics. So it's you build a community that works anyways. The guy who does my bees, my bees, it's his bees, but he gives us a bunch of honey. Like every year, I let him put bees on our land, and this year he's left them there for the winter as well. So, and he's put more of them. He's given me a lot more honey. I've got enough honey for the year. I've got enough olive oil for the year, and it's proper honey, and it's proper olive oil. So, slowly it's building. Eventually I'm gonna build a decent greenhouse to keep the crap that they're spraying me with out of it. And eventually, somehow, somewhere, I know that my 1911 fund, which is here, just to show you guys, hasn't gone anywhere. And I'm actually adding to it today as well, because Cooper Chauvin gave me a super chat of like $50. So I said I match whatever you guys like put in for the 1911 fund. But a tractor would be presently a lot more useful than a 1911. Of course, it all depends on when the economic crash is coming, because it is coming. When the economic crash really comes, if it comes really hard, the 1911 might be a lot more meaningful than the tractor, because with the 1911 you can get a tractor. I mean, it's going down that route. Sam Wereb says, I think I saw the same study. A diver friend tells me that Belize is the Ukraine of South America. Yeah. Well, I followed when it was happening. The McAfee guy, what's his name? The guy who they offed in prison. I mean, he was kind of burnt out. John McAfee. I followed this whole thing of how he escaped from Belize and whatever. And he was like actually an interesting character. At that point, when that was happening, oh, damn it, sorry guys, I'm getting cramps in my legs because I've been on my feet all day. I need to drink some magnesium or whatever. But yeah, take some magnesium. They, yeah, when John McAfee was trying to escape from Belize and whatever, and he explained everything. He basically corrupted the corrupt cops because he gave them all like free laptops, but they had spyware on it, so he could blackmail them if they tried to blackmail him. That was like his like safeguard thing. And he's a crazy guy, you know, but a very interesting character. And I think he absolutely burnt himself out. He was a semi-functioning alcoholic and probably drug addict on some level, on very various levels. But he was an interesting guy. I saw a podcast he did with, or part of the podcast he did with, oh, I forgot what they're called, PKA or something. The guy who used to do the Russian accent that they're like, he's a Southern, he's an American guy, Southerner from Georgia, I think, who used to do what Dmitry Popov, the guy like, and have a nice day. You know, he used to blow shit up with guns and explosions and shit. He used to do like crazy stuff, and then like he'd always end up and says, and oh, as always, have a nice day. He was doing this Russian accent, and it was like one of the biggest YouTubers, and then and then he lost all his fucking guns, 400 grand's worth of guns, because he was smoking dope, and they caught him with it, and they gave him a federal charge, so he did 2 months in prison. Again, another interesting guy. You know, do I agree with everything these people do? No, no, it doesn't matter about that. But he's an interesting character. He's not boring, you know. Oh, what the hell's his name? I forget his name. But anyway, they did an interview with John McAfee not too long before he disappeared to Spain, got arrested, got killed in jail, whatever. And oh, what is the guy's name? I'm trying to the PKA guy. There's the guy called Woody. There's a guy called Taylor, and then there's the other guy. I forget his name. The other guy, you know, Woody and Taylor are kind of like whatever geeks. This other guy is now a geek or whatever, and he's doing steroids now, or he did steroids. I can't remember his name, but anyway, he um, he hates John McAfee. He didn't like him. He's like, I can't stand the guy. And I can kind of see why, because you know the John McAfee guy he's a boomer, and yes, he made his money with the McAfee um, antivirus, which you can never get rid of. It's a virus itself, you know. But then he sold the company, so it wasn't him doing it anymore or whatever. But he's definitely a guy who sort of lived life on his own terms, and those people are always interesting. They're not necessarily, you know, I'm not saying it's something you should emulate or anything, but um, come up with some interesting concepts. And what happened to him in Belize was like fucking basically the whole government went up against him. His neighbor was killed, and they tried to accuse him of the murder. But the way John McAfee is, maybe he did kill the guy. Maybe the cops did it. Fuck knows. You'll never know what that story is. And he was definitely burnt out because on the podcast you could see he was like he couldn't really function, and he was always like and he was asking for his drink the whole time. So it's like, yeah. In 2 or 3 streams ago, I heard you say this prayer at the very end. I have to leave, but I'll pray it for all of you. Now, may the Lord find you in His mercy, protect you, and help you. Yeah, it was a spontaneous thing I make up. It's what I do wish people. You know, like you know what they say. Like you can run as hard as you want, but if God wants to get you, He's going to get you. And I mean, I think I'm the classical example of that because I had plenty of weird experiences that should have any rational person that had half the shit that I had happen to me would have said, dude, there's definitely an afterlife, and there's a whole bunch of things, which I kind of knew. There's something, but I was like, nah, I don't have hardcore evidence. I don't have the engineer, or actual scientist by design, by divine intent, by I don't know accident. But that's how my brain works. It's like it's not that you can't change my mind. You can, but you've got to prove it. You've got to state your case. And the case for, the loving God of Catholicism being the real one hadn't been made to me as far as I was concerned. And then it did with interest. So when God wants to find a guy, he finds him. So McAfee was awesome. He has a biography done in interview fashion with a normie. Oh, where is that? Is that like is that a book or is that a video or what? In his 70s, he switched to Chinese or Russian drugs, but he said they could make you feel any way you wish. Yeah, but he was absolutely burnt out. That interview I saw he did with PKA, which was not too long before he died, or was killed rather. I believe he was killed. And I believe he was killed because he was exposing all sorts of things. He might have been a burnt out guy, but there was whatever part of his brain was still functioning was a threat. And he was probably burnt out because his attitude to life was like, fuck it. I'm going to do what I want to do because I can. I've got the money for it. I've done the money. I've built the money. And I've built the money doing whatever the fuck I want and doing it the way I like. I remember he said, he explained one of the things, he was still pretty irrational when he was running away from Belize and whatever. And I can't remember if it was on his site or something he wrote. And he said, the thing is, I've always been a fucking savage. I just had this veneer of like civilization just to like try and keep me out of jail, really. And he mentioned how he used to like go out to bars and like hit on girls or women or whatever. And he was a maths guy. He was apparently really good at maths. And he was like, well, I just figured it out mathematically that if I asked 100 women, hey, do you want to go have sex? Out of 100, at least one or two would say yes. And yeah, maybe, what's the worst that can happen? I get a glass of wine thrown in my face, or I get told, no, fuck off, you creep, or whatever. Well, whatever. And that was his strategy for getting laid. And he got laid pretty regularly. Again, it's a maths guy, and I mean, I wasn't that blunt about it, but I wasn't far off. I mean, I I just I didn't do I did math calculation anyway, but that wasn't it. I just hate small talk. I can't fucking do it. I learned that as a young teenager when you first start to get interested in girls and was parties and whatever, and you start to talk to girls and whatever, and it's like, oh, there's a pretty chick, I want to talk to her, and it would be like, oh, so what do you do? And oh, well, you're in school, I'm in school. Yeah, we know where are you from? Okay, you're Swedish. Oh, you look hot, cool, blonde, tall, and you're tall. Oh, how old are you? Oh, why do you want to know? Because I'm like 16 or 15, and I just want to make sure you're not 12 and have got big tits or something. That was like, and I could never do the small talk. Like I remember all my friends, they were like trying to talk to girls and be clever and whatever. They would just look at me like, "Fuck, dude, you're like a fucking barbarian. You're just like going swinging all the time." Like, well, what? Like, well, so it's not like I'm getting any more or any less action than you guys. So, like, clearly it's fine. It's called No Domain, the McAfee takes. Thank you for that. I'm going to look that up. And I don't condone the use of drugs to make you feel whichever way you want. Uh, I condone the use of your own willpower, your own mind, to feel whichever way you want. I've got plenty of reasons to feel like shit if I want to. I choose not to. I choose to like look at the positive side of things whenever I can. And sometimes a positive thing happens and I'm like, well, let's just wait and see because you don't know. Choose to be how you want to be. That's why you have a brain. That's why God gave you in his image. He built a multi-million-dollar mansion in Colorado and became a yoga teacher for hot women after he came back from India. Yeah, you see what I mean? The guy, I mean, he was an absolute boomer, a complete hedonist, and he was, absolutely pussy struck. He was pussy hypnotized. Again, I understand. I inhabited those waters, shall we say, where it's like, if you don't believe in God, and I mean really not believe, if you don't know that there is God, as such, and you just have a vague belief in possibly, some God or something. What are the joys in this life, really? And if you don't really believe in, again, God, hell, sin, you're kind of like, yeah, maybe there's a karmic energy, maybe there's something. What are the joys in life? Some people will say alcohol and drugs. I don't. I don't think those are joys. I think they're actually deceptions. I always thought this, whatever anything that a drug can do, your brain can naturally do if you're in the right state, etc. And when you use a drug to get that feeling, you're overtaxing your whole system. You're getting something that should be doled out in like tenths of a milligrams over a period of days or months, in like you're getting a gram of it in like a second. And then your body it's got to pay the price. There's a tax for it. And it's just like you take a drug that makes you feel okay for like 5 hours and then totally shit for 3 days. Like these are people who can't do maths. Drug addicts are people who cannot do fucking maths. Simple as. And the same thing with booze. If you drink too much of it, you vomit, you feel shit for a couple of days. Why the fuck do that to yourself? And it kills your brain cells anyway. So what's the point? So, what they say, like smoking, drinking, drugs, and sex. And I was like, well, I don't like smoking. It's, again, bad for you. Don't like drinking. It's not particularly good for you. Never touch drugs. It's shit for you. I'll concentrate my vices on pussy. So I get it. What other pleasures have you got in life other than exploring, discovering things, visiting cool places, or figuring out the ancient history of humanity, which is what I did. I traveled to learn about shit like that. I went to visit places that I wanted to see, and whatever I thought looked pretty or that I wanted to experiment with, and she was okay with it. Hey, that was fine. So I get it. He was a complete boomer hedonist. Didn't have any God to speak of, I'm sure. And but given that he was a complete hedonist, he still achieved some pretty interesting goals in terms of, he's like what I call one of those edge people. It's like if you saw the Thin Red Line, the film, or if you read the book. And the Thin Red Line has got two meanings to it. The Thin Red Line was the Red Jackets, right? The British that conquered most of the known world at the time with the Thin Red Line, because they used to wear red jackets, the soldiers, right? And they used to stand in a line to shoot and so on. But there's also a thin red line between madness and heroism, or criminality and heroism, or between madness and courage. It's a thin line. A guy like John McAfee was a kind of hedonistic Superman. Imagine if that guy had, at an early age, realized the truth of, Catholicism. He might have turned out to be another Thomas Aquinas. Who knows? And people like that are they're very interesting, and you can learn stuff from them. It doesn't mean that you have to take everything they do on board, but Chad BH says, you mentioned you're not a fan of most puas. What are your issues with them? Well, you'll be glad to know I'm putting some of that stuff in one of the book I'm writing next, which is actually, I don't know if it's going to be that interesting a book, because it's kind of dry, because it's just giving you the actual information that is important concerning relationships, women. Sorry guys, it's getting a little bit chilly because the fire downstairs and the stove is probably dying down, and I'm just pulling my thick socks up. Pickup artists are, again, I'm generalizing, but generalizations are still facts. Most pickup artists are absolute fucking con men. They're useless with women, and they're preying on men. They're preying on the weakness of men. That's why they're pickup artists. They sell your course. They sell you a book. They sell you this. They sell you that. It's like, fucking hell. The only reason I found out about pickup artists is because when I was still in London and I was going training, regularly. And after training, there was a tradition of going to the pub, which again, I'm not the drinker, but whatever. It was like, being with your buddies, and I didn't necessarily drink any booze. I just maybe had an orange juice or whatever. Sometimes I did, but I'm not a beer drinker as such, so I didn't really have much to drink. But you hang out with your buddies and you're talking, you're just shooting the shit for a bit after training, right? And very often, I had a girl come pick me up. In London, I don't drive a car, but I could go with a tube or whatever. And sometimes some of the girls I was going out with, they'd be like, "Oh, you're doing this? Oh, I want to come watch." And I'm like, "Oh, whatever, okay." And I can't even remember. I was no, I wasn't teaching at that time. I was just training. And even when I started teaching, I still had girls coming or whatever. But anyway, the thing was, the reason I found out about the game and whatever is because at one of the pub things that we went out to, the instructor that was like the guy who owned the club basically was like, "Hey, dude, you should read this book. This, the game. Have you read the book, The Game? Like it's about hypnosis and pussy and women." And I'm like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" No, 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 you should read it. And they gave me, they sent me the PDF of it, like a pirated copy of the PDF. And I was like, "What the fuck is this? The Game?" And I read it and I was like, "What?" They're like, "Dude, these, don't you understand what these guys are doing?" It's like, look, some of the guys I used to train with, like my neighbor, my just random people sometimes, like guy at the shop, they used to ask me like, "Dude, fuck, you're always with some super hot women and you change them every like 2 or 3 days. What the fuck are you doing? Can you teach me?" I swear to God, I used to get people asking me that, and it was like, sometimes it was total strangers, like literally my neighbor, like, I think I've said it to you guys before, but my neighbor like invited me over to his place. Said, "Look, I wanted to talk to you." And I was like, "What, is he gay? Am I making noise in the building? What the fuck?" Like, "No, look, I haven't had a relationship. I haven't had a date in a year. And like, you've got a fucking different hot chick every 2 or 3 days. Can you like, please teach me what the fuck you're doing?" And I was like, "No, please, look, if you want, just come for a beer at my place. I just tell me what, tell me something." I was like, "Okay, dude, you don't have to buy me a beer. I don't know." And I kind of tried to tell him, but the thing is, you know, and I did. I like the guy where I used to go. There was a sort of a deli place where I used to buy some food, but you could also eat there. And I sometimes used to take a date there or whatever because it was just close to my house and I didn't have to like bother. And so either we eat there before and then go to my place, or we came from my place to have breakfast there or whatever. It was just. And again, the guy there was like, "Fuck, man," and he could speak Italian. Actually, he was like in Italian. He just looks at me and goes, and I was with a girl actually, like a very pretty one, and he just looked at me in Italian and goes, "Ma le cambi, eh?" Just like, "But you changed them, huh?" And I was like, "Dude, what the fuck?" It's like I'm actually sitting here with it, and then afterwards, they're like, "Hey, man," he goes like, "Fuck, man," it's like. You were in here 3 days ago with one, now another one, another fucking doesn't let the other one. They're like, "What the fuck?" And I was like, yeah, I get bored, you know? So I get it. You can get caught up into that. But the thing is, whenever a guy asks me, "Oh, what do you do?" I tell them what I'm doing. I just go and ask. If I see a pretty girl, I say, "Hey, I like you. You want to go for a coffee?" What's the worst that can happen? You know, I've got a boyfriend. So what? I've literally been in a train or in a tube or whatever, in a bus, and I see some hot girl, and I'm like, and I was single at the time. I was like, "I am sorry to bother you, but I think you look amazing. You probably married, have boyfriend or whatever. In which case, but can I have, can I have coffee with you? Can we talk?" And I never got a bad reaction. Like most women would just smile and say, "Oh, thank you very much, but no, I'm married, or I have a husband, or I have a boyfriend," or and sometimes they'd be like, "Oh, that's really cool of you. Well, kind of weird. Do you do this a lot?" I'm like, "Only the pretty ones," you know. And then sometimes we would go for a coffee, and quite often the coffee would turn into possibly dinner or just straight to my house or their house or whatever. It wasn't. There's nothing wrong, and I've paid compliments to women that I absolutely knew were married. I mean, that was one that I remember actually. That was like actually quite. I don't know. She just had something. Was And you know, she wasn't particularly young. She was at least in her late 30s, if maybe even early 40s. I don't know. Definitely late 30s anyway. And we were just shopping, and I was just shopping, going, buying a couple of bits of food before I went home. And I just saw her. There was something about her. She was very attractive and so on. And I thought, she deserves to know. And I actually said to her, "Look, I'm sorry, I'm not hitting on you." And I was actually with somebody at the time, and I said, "I've got a girlfriend. I'm not trying to hit on you or anything. And I see you got a ring, you're married, so I'm not making a pass. But I just needed to tell you, you're extremely sensual and feminine and beautiful. Please know that you are that." And the way she accepted the compliment in itself was also sexy, because she sort of like smiled, took it in, didn't she's like, "Well, thank you very much. It's very kind of you to say. You're not so bad yourself." And it was just a pleasant interaction. It didn't need to lead anywhere. Now, the thing about pickup artists is they prey on the weakness of men, because they're like, "Oh, you want to get with women and you don't know how, but I'm going to teach you the special secret method." Look, there's no special secret method. Like, the whole thing about being able to attract a woman or be with a woman, it's the same thing as anything. It's like, if you want to, be charming or be somebody that people listen to or whatever, learn. Just practice, just practice, and learn from your mistakes. Practice, you make a mistake, learn. Practice, make a mistake, learn. There's nothing difficult about it. And trying to, like, and so that's one thing. They're praying. Second, they're basically trying to break down natural human interaction in an autistic fashion. That's like, "Oh, the first thing you have to do when you meet a human being is say, 'Hello, how are you?'" They're trying to, like, deconstruct normal human interactions into, like, robot type software shit, which is, again, for the autists. Now, there happens to be a good friend who is an autist, who's, having girl troubles or whatever, and he regularly asks me stuff. And he's not the only one, by the way. I get enough email and stuff about this that I'm like, that's why I'm kind of writing the book, which I don't really want to, because it's like, well, my nonfiction books tend to be stuff that I'm absolutely, I know that shit inside out. Now, the thing about relationships and women is you're gonna know if you know enough when you're dead, really. But like Believe, right? I wrote Believe before I was baptized, and also, um, was it before I was baptized? No, maybe it wasn't. I can't remember. But anyway, that was like my own sort of opinion, like reclaiming the Catholic Church as a purely objective facts, data, information. But when it's like my ideas on something, it's like, and yet Believe was useful because, a lot of people converted and found, again, proper Catholicism as a result of it. So I'm thinking maybe I should write this book about relationship women, and, how men and women are different and how they interact, what a relationship really is, and so on. Because they try and mechanize a process that should never be mechanized. It's like saying, if you're going to make olive oil, you have to put it all in a box, and then the box has to go here, and it has to be squashed with this pressure, and that's it. And then whatever comes out, that's the oil, and anything more or less is not oil. It's like, life is not like that. It's got to be more organic, it's got to be more natural, it's got to be more normal. And plus, because they box everything in, that's when the whole red pill movement and men rights activists come out, and they're like a bunch of fucking just absolute useless fucks. Because what are they doing? They're, again, mechanizing the whole thing. So then women become like the enemy, or they become like, I hate using the thing like objectifying women, because it's that whole feminist bullshit. But everybody objectifies everybody, so that's not the point. But what I'm saying is, like, it's making women into, like, from the perspective of the so-called pickup artist and or his useless students, it's making women into like some video game. It's like a video game. Oh, you have to pass this level, and then you have to do that thing, and then you have to do that thing, and then you won the prize. And again, human beings don't work that way. So yeah, you can bang a chick, so what? And you take guys like what's his name, the guy that became a schismatic Orthodox, the guy that's got a stutter, man, like so-called brilliant pickup artist. The fuck's his name? Oh, I forget his name. The guy with the beard now, he's like a hermit somewhere, like incel total. Anyway, you guys need to know I've had a weird hobby since I was relatively young, which was because I was reading about religion and philosophy, and I read plenty of books on this. I'd get in, I'd go and investigate. I'd go and infiltrate all sorts of cults. And when I say investigate, I mean Rosicrucians, Dianetics, the Scientologists, Amma the Hugging Saint. Um, I'm just talking the big ones, right? Because there's a bunch of other like that are, most of you won't know what they are. And the pickup artists. It was like, these freaks. Let's see what these freaks are doing. The evangelists. I went to like happy clappy churches and like I went to Hindu temples. I went to. It was because I was just like, let me just look at all this bullshit. Let's just see where's any truth here. And invariably, these guys are absolute nonsense. But I investigated them. I let's check this guy out. Let's see what he does. Oh, there's a seminar. And again, I was on my own. I had plenty of money. Didn't. It was interesting. It was studying freaks. So I went to like one of I can't even remember if it was a paid or a free thing. I don't remember. Like one of the seminars by this guy whose name escapes me right now. It'll come to me. Roosh, thank you, Chad. Roosh V. And it's like, I think Vox was also talking him up or whatever. And it's like, this guy's pathetic. He was there. He got, I think, sued, or he got like done by. He had hired this woman to be like the greeter or whatever. And like he did such a piss poor job of it that by the end of it, she turned on him. The woman that he'd hired to be the greeter for the men to impress people with, oh, look, a hot chick, like turned on him. When he was giving the talk, it was like, I was looking around. I was like, oh my God, all these people, all these guys, they're like, you can tell they're like desperate guys who like don't know how to talk with women. And I was looking around like this, and I saw another guy, also bald, with a broken nose and like sort of half cauliflower ears. And I thought, well, that guy knows what he's doing. And then the Darush V guy was like, he was like, when he gets nervous, he starts to like stutter. He's got a stutter, and I could see he's trying to mask it, and he's learned all these little techniques, and you can see he's fully autistic, and he's like, and he's like learned how to like get over the stutter sort of by doing certain things. And I felt sorry for him. I genuinely felt like, oh fuck, poor bastard. And now this guy is teaching men about women, and I got laid a lot, and who did he get laid with? And what did he get laid with? The drunk girls at the end of the fucking club when everybody else is done. Or like the random slutty chick that like will do anybody. It's like, what? What is the point of this? And one of his things was like, because you gotta hit in your field. If you're like a 6, you can't be with a 10. What the fuck's he talking about? That you can't go maybe 1 or 2 numbers, but it's not sustainable. Maybe you can get to bang a 9 if you're like a 7, but you won't be able to stay there. What the fuck's he? What's he talking about? And I looked around when I was looking at this, and the only other guy that twigged was the guy with the broken nose. And so the intermission, I went to talk to him and I said, hey, dude, it looks like kind of the only one that knows the fuck's going on here. And he goes, yeah. What's that shit about like if you're a 6 or a 7, you can't be with a 9 or a 10? That's a lot of horse shit. It's like, yeah, I know it is. It's fucking nonsense. I mean, and again, I'm not bragging about this, but the thing is, like, whenever I went to work, with like, the long-term relationships that I had and short-term relationships that I had, the guys I worked with, when like my then wife used to come and pick me up, and either one of my wives, that was like, I remember like my project manager was like, oh, who the hell was that I saw you talking with at lunchtime? I was like, oh, it was my wife, ex-wife. Fuck, dude, I think you were punching above your weight. I was like, what? Nah, she's not even anywhere near the hottest chick I've been with. She's good looking. She's fine. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? I'm like, dude, seriously, you're lying. I said, well, I'm going to show you a picture of the girl I'm seeing now. There you go. And he's like, oh fuck, So it's got nothing to do with like Look, I'm not saying, if you're 4'2", you've got a club foot, you're hairy like hell, and you're blind in one eye, and you speak with a lisp because you've got a cleft palate. Okay, you're gonna have a harder time than I would. Fine, but that doesn't mean you can't be with somebody. That doesn't mean you can't have a decent, really meaningful, cool relationship. And the whole point of pickup artists is they fuck that up. They actually, it's like boomer ideology. I bought into some of that shit when I was a kid. I was like 16, 17. Like, yeah, feminism is pretty cool. I like the idea of feminism. Yeah, everybody's equal. Yeah, why shouldn't we be equal before the law and everything? And we're not equal. Male brains don't work the same as female brains. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? You're trying to say that there's an equality of outcome instead of opportunity, and that's just not true. It's not real. So yeah, there you go. Oh, okay. Let me just catch up with the chat. Um, DTTW says he said after reading Charles Darwin's book, he realized he didn't need God, and he changed his life. A bit surprising to hear that from him because he was a genius. Well, but there you go. You see, that's the boomer ideology. That's what happened to John McAfee, and that's what can happen to anybody. I, up until my late 30s, I was like, maybe not late 30s, but certainly mid 30s. I was like, well, I don't want to have kids because the world is shit and life is pain and eventually you die, thank God. But which I didn't really believe in. A God I didn't really believe in, but fuck, who'd want to bring kids into this? That was the boomer thing. That was like the whole nonsense of boomerism. And you know, who knows what my life would have been like if I'd had a bunch of kids when I was in my 20s. I, I wouldn't be with the woman that I'm with now, which I'm very happy I'm with the woman that I am now because she's the one. And it was a very long, tortuous, painful route to get to be with her. And is there only one, or who knows? I mean, the thing is, I I believe because of who I am and how I am, for me, probably there's just the one. But you don't know who that one is until you end up with her, because you sort of think, oh, this is probably the one, or maybe this is the one. And the difference is that with all the other ones, it's like, okay, I think this could be the one. Well, with this one, it's like, nah, she's the one. But then the weird thing is, I knew that the first day I met her. The first day I met her, I had this flash. I saw it. So I don't know. I'm weird. Okay, I got the premonition thing, which by the way is a real thing. Buy the Sistema book. You can't get the Sistema book on the ebooks. It's a So they mechanize humanity. That's what I don't like about pickup artists. They con men and they lie. They absolutely fucking lie. Most of these so-called pickup artists are absolutely shit with women. The one pickup artist that was not shit with women that I looked into was Eric something or other, not the mystery guy. The mystery guy is shit. Um, the guy who used to call himself Hypnotica, who's also a decent hypnotist, by the way. But he'd essentially organized his whole life around pussy. I mean, he was like part owner of a strip club. He hung around with like strippers the whole time. He like banged everything that moved as soon as he could. And then, it was just, that was just his thing. He was like, that's all he essentially did. That and hypnosis, and maybe had a couple of other interests, but it was like his purpose in life was to get as much pussy as possible. And again, hedonist, and didn't really believe in God as such, but used the concept to like hypnotize and whatever. So and also his hypnosis wasn't, he was decent at it, but wasn't ethically like clean. So again, not someone I could try. Maybe as a male friend in an extreme situation, he might have been a very good loyal guy. I don't know, because just because a guy's a fucking pussy hunter doesn't mean that he's not necessarily a brave, courageous, loyal man friend to another man, possibly. But to me, it was limited. I was looking at him and thinking, okay, dude, yeah, you can get all this women, but I mean, by the time I went to, I took one, I went to one of his seminars. There was, and again, there was, out of all the people that were there was one guy that was like kind of knew what he was doing. And the girl, he had like a couple of hot girls that were there, and he was banging one of them or whatever. And he had a couple of them to like sort of play the, oh, here's a hot chick. But they were working for him, and one of the ones he was also like nailing her. And at one of the intermissions, again, one of the breaks, some guy like went up to like one of the girls, not the one that he was seeing, another one, and he said, listen, I was just wondering, could I take you out for coffee sometime? And she turned, and I mean, this chick she was hot, but I could spot her a mile away. She was probably a stripper or an ex-stripper, and she was like hardcore, those hardened women that like are hard. And it's like I wasn't. She was attractive physically, but I wasn't particularly attracted to her because I could tell what she's hardened by life, sort of. Anyway, this guy was a nice guy, good guy. He wasn't creepy. He wasn't. He wasn't a bad dude. You could just tell he was a decent human being. And you're like, and you could see he'd like work himself up a bit and like, look, I'm here. I'm gonna say, excuse me, do you think I could take you out for coffee sometime? And she turned around, looked at him, and goes, no, you can't, but he can. And looked at me. I hadn't said a word. I hadn't looked at her, and I was like, fuck, you know. I just walked away. I didn't even say anything to it. I just like, I just walked off. I don't know if she did it to hurt his feelings or whatever, and like afterwards I waited for the guy to come out and I said, you know why she did that? And, I tried to play it nice for him because he was like, that was unnecessary to like blow the guy away that way. I said, look, she's just kind of told you that because of the way you asked, wasn't very confident. It was like you tried to put on a confident face on it and you did a decent thing, but like I could see it, and so she could see it even more because she's the woman, she's gonna feel it even more. It was sort of like, oh, may I please, miss, have a coffee with you, instead of like, hey girl, I like you want to go for a coffee. It's different, it's a different intent. So, and I tried to tell him that, but that's it, and like the whole thing about pickup artists is they make relationships between men and women worse. It's the same like the male rights activists or whatever. It's like, oh, it's all unfair. Yeah, it's unfair, so fucking change it. And again, I'm not speaking from inexperience. I've had 2 divorces. I've like all sorts of shit between, So it's like, are you gonna whine and bitch, or are you gonna do, just be, like I don't know. I'm not explaining it very well, which is why I'm gonna try and write the book, because it's something that is so obvious and clear to me that I need to translate it into language for other humans. So like my unique high intelligence knows it, and now I have to translate it into very high intelligence for, so that it can be digested by the common man. Instinctive Archer says it's not so much what you do, but how and the energy you exude. Yeah, there's a lot to be said for that. And Gaijin TV says, Hail Kurgan, you're not so bad yourself. Buon Natale from Japan. Chad, I don't know if I've answered your question. I've probably done a terrible job of it, actually. So I don't know. Have I answered your question in part? Otherwise, please be a bit more specific with an aspect of it, and maybe I can do a better job. But yeah, so there was something else I wanted to tell you guys. I forgot about it now, but anyway, it'll come to me or not. So yeah. Oh yeah, I was talking about this friend of mine who's pretty autistic, and he's like, "Oh, so this girl did this, and should I do that?" And I was like, "Dude, you gotta move away from the binary way of thinking, because that's what happens with pickup artists. They put things in a box, like, oh, you gotta neg a woman, you gotta like say something negative to like get her interested. And it's like, well, do you? Oh, never apologize. Really? Even when you're completely fucked up? These are all their little rules that are bullshit. They're generic terms which are like half truths to begin with, and then they like extend it into like some absolute, which is fucking nonsense. One of the and I blogged about this guy. So if you go on the blog and you type in me how, like one word, like me how, but like one word, it'll come up. This guy was all over the internet in, I don't know, 2008, 10, 6. I don't remember. I don't know. Some years ago, but he was all over the fucking internet, and he was producing books and seminars and fucking doing seminars at $1,300. And I remember that number because it was one of the reasons that I like, what? It was one of the first blog posts I did on him. It was like, what the fuck? And because I investigate these guys, I kind of look into them. This guy was all over the internet and claimed to have his claim to fame, and it was scattered over different blog posts he'd done and different like interviews and shit that he'd done. That was like, by his own admission, in 10 years of being a pickup artist master guru, spending $500,000 of daddy's money, because he was basically a rich kid, daddy's boy, in 10 years, he'd bedded between 30 and 40 women, which probably means 20. And some of those were probably just hand jobs. And he considered himself a master guru of like pickup artistry. And it's like, look, even if it, never mind all the, I'm not saying never mind. I'm saying even if you're not religious, you don't believe in the sin and all blah, 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 blah. But what? I mean, $500,000 in 10 years? What the fuck, dude? You could spend a tenth of that and have 50 chicks just by going, doing the McAfee thing and saying, hey, I want to bang you silly. Here's $1,000 just to see if we like each other. I'm not buying you as a whore. I'm just saying, if you say yes, there's $1,000. Let's go have sex and figure out if we like each other. You'd bang 50 chicks within 50 days, and that's if you're a bit lazy and you don't want to do 2 or 3 chicks a day, and that would be 50 grand, and it would take you, what, 2 months? It was like, what the fuck, dude? And he considered himself a master guru. So it's like, it's like these guys were like, I bought my 4th Dan black belt and I'm now a ninja. Really? Yeah, well, I'm not wearing a belt at all. Hell, I'll just wear my underpants and I'll bitch slap you to death. That's what you can do with your like 4th Dan bolt. But it's fucking nonsense. It's just nonsense. Benderman says Catholic or Orthodox are the only choices. I respect both. You might respect both, but that's because you haven't looked into it deep enough. If you do look into it deep enough, you'll figure out that the Orthodox are not a valid choice. They never spread the gospel. They're stagnant. They're betrayers, and it's very, very likely that they do not have apostolic succession, especially the Russians, because in Soviet times, all the metropolitans were KGB plants. Like in China now, they're putting the Novos Ordo is not Catholic anyways, but all the Novos Ordo bishops or whatever are being replaced by so-called bishops, fake Novos Ordo bishops that have to toe the Chinese party line. So perhaps the Greek Orthodox may have some apostolic successions. Most of the ex-Soviet countries don't have any at all and can't lay claim to it. And there were backstabbers that didn't spread the gospels. I mean, it was Catholics getting crucified in Japan, which is on the other side of the planet. It wasn't the Orthodox getting crucified. It was the Orthodox that handed over and let go to the Muslims. It was the Catholics after the schisms, 50 years after the schism. The Orthodox were like, oh, please come help us. And the Catholics went there, helped them, liberated their lands, and the Orthodox backstabbed them, made deals with the Muslims to try and kill the Catholics after the Catholics had saved their lands and claimed their stuff back. And they did this in the First Crusade, they did this in the Second Crusade, they did this in the Third Crusade. Then in the Fourth Crusade, the Catholics got tired of this shit and sacked Constantinople, not even that badly. And what's their narrative? Oh, the Catholics attacked us, they're so evil. Ah. No, the Orthodox are not a valid Christianity at all. They're schismatics. They failed. They had valid sacraments and so on. But by the way, the Orthodox nowadays recognize Bergoglio as an actual pope. So they've fallen by the waysides as well. The only Christians left are Sedevacantists. That's it. And I know it upsets you guys, but it is what it is. And the thing is, I'm not asking you to take my opinion for it. I'm telling you, go study it. Go review it. If you want to save yourself time, buy my books. Buy Believe and buy Reclaiming the Catholic Church. They've got a lot of references in it, and it'll save you years of work because I did that work before you. But you don't have to buy my books. I'm not telling you to buy my shit. You know, you can get Reclaiming the Catholic Church in ebook format, by the way, because I've fucking done it properly now, so it doesn't look like a pile of crap that's all over the place. So you can get an ebook of Reclaiming the Catholic Church cheaper than you can get the paper book on Amazon. But again, I'm not telling you buy my book because, I'm telling you that. No, just go read the first 200 years of Christianity. Do you guys know there's volumes and volumes and volumes of stuff that's from before 200 AD that talks about Christianity? Do you know there was popes in the year 400, in the year 500, in the year 600? And do you know that everybody agreed that the Pope was the main dude for over 1,000 years? Why don't you know that? You know, it's like, I'm not bashing the so-called Orthodox or even the Protestants or anybody just for the fun of it. I do bash them in a rhetorically painful fashion, but that's to wake you up, because most people are so fucking retarded, ignorant, and stupid that when you tell them, you're a moron, because you think 2 and 2 is green, I'm going to make the laughing stock out of you. It hurts them. It stings them. And then because they get so pissed off, they're like, I'm going to prove this bald fucker right and wrong, and I'm going to read, and shit is right. And ding, 5 years down the line, ding. Oh, they never come back and say thank you. Very few of them ever do. Maybe one in a blue moon, but I don't care about that. I don't give a shit if you like me. I don't care if I'm your best buddy or you hate my guts. I don't care. You're a guy on the other end of the screen. Until you come here or you buy a house here, you move next to me, whatever, live your life, have fun. But the whole point, you should spread the word. Now, do I spread the word kind of like a maniac with the two-handed sword taking scalps? Yes, and it works. My little book, Believe, converted over 100 people. I don't know what the number is. I've lost count. How many people have you converted to actually find God? And these guys are not like half-assed converts. They're getting married. They're in church with a set of priests. They're having babies. They travel to other countries to get baptized because they didn't have a set of priests in their country. And they're starting a little sect of people in Finland. These are not half-assed believers. How many fucking people of your denomination of Christianity have converted to whatever the crap you believe in? And it's not because I believe in it, and it's because I'm telling you the truth. I give you the references where you can check everything that I'm saying, so you don't have to believe me at all. You don't have to take anything that I say on faith at all. I give you the references by Reclaiming the Catholic Church. There, look. This thing is filled with references, filled with footnotes. It's not a bunch of diagrams. It's not like large font and pictures. It's filled with references. And it nails every single point that you can have against Sedevacantism or Catholicism. Go look it up. Don't take my word for it. Do not take anything that I'm saying at face value. Go and look it up. Go do your own research. You don't even have to read my book. Go do your own research anyways. Read the first 500 years of Christianity. And then tell me, after you've read the first 1,000 years, if 600 is not enough, read the first 1,000 years of Christian history. Facts, okay? Demonstrable facts. Never mind all the bullshit. Read. And then tell me, after you've done that, how on earth could you possibly entertain that some fat German who had a hankering for banging nuns or raping the maid, because he's on record as saying this, if the wife doesn't want to have sex with you, just bang the maid, whether she likes it or not, and who is on record as saying that reason is the whore of the devil. Now, reason is a function of humanity. Reason is an aspect of God. Logic is an aspect of God. Logos, the very concept of logos, the word, God, Jesus Christ, yeah, it's an aspect of God, and we're made in God's image. The scientific method, who the fuck do you think invented that? Catholic monks. Catholic monks invented the scientific method by making observation repeated and repeated and repeated under the same conditions, testing the theory, seeing if the hypothesis works, making a conclusion. Why? Because in Catholic dogma, God is logical. And if God is logical, so is his creation. And if his creation is logical, you can understand it and you can figure shit out. And you can, you know? The Orthodox like to say, oh, well, it's a mystery. Oh, it's a mystery. Oh, it's a bit complicated. It's a mystery. Now, Catholics have got mystics and mysteries too. There are Catholic mysteries. The Trinity, it's a mystery. Considered a mystery in Catholic dogma. But that doesn't mean that you can't say anything about it. That doesn't mean you can't figure a whole bunch of shit out. And you know what? Read the Catholic dogma. Go and look it up. The things that the Orthodox, many of the things that the Orthodox go, oh, it's a mystery. You go and read the Catholic dogma and it explains to you why X and Y and Z. Oh, and then it goes back to A and B and C because, oh, it comes from this in the Bible. Oh, it comes from this aspect of why should priests not be married? Oh, why don't you go and look that up? Go find out. Go find out why Catholic priests do not have sex, are not allowed to be married. And that's, by the way, that's not correct. Catholic priests can be married, but they're not allowed to have sex, even with their wife. If they become a priest after they were married first and then they become a priest, they no longer have sex with their wife. And this was always the case. Go and figure out why that is. Where does it come from? It comes from the Christianity that existed before Jesus, because it's one thread. And people that say, oh, Judeo-Christian, there is no such thing. The people that are Jews today are the offshoot that comes from the people that refused Jesus when Jesus was around, the Pharisees. It's Talmudic Judaism. Talmudic Judaism is a younger religion than Christianity. Christianity started with the Old Testament, and there's a long thread that goes all the way to us. There is an older religion than Christianity, and that's Satanism. Depending on your definitions. But for humans, Satanism is older than Christianity because, Lucifer rebelled as soon as we came about. And the rules of our church didn't come about until much later. So hello, Woolly Ram. Catholicism has a discipline for meditating on mysteries of the faith. Try lecture for a while. You'll be amazed at its effect. Sacrifice is everything. Yeah, well, again, that's the whole point of Christianity, right? There is sacrifice. That's why we have a cross. The cross is the ultimate sacrifice, isn't it? And yes, and you know what? People like, I need to be happy. Well, no, you don't need to be happy. You need to choose, because you're either with God or you're against Him. There is no in between. And I've been one of the in between guys, right? I've been the guy that I was Zen agnostic. I wasn't Christian. I was briefly atheist for a small period of time between the ages of 7 and about 15, 16, something like that. By 16, I was definitely an agnostic. And then by 19, I was kind of a Zen agnostic slash Shintoist, possibly with elements of reincarnation, which is, Shintoism believes in that, whatever, because of karate, Zen influence. And it's not karate that made me that. It wasn't the Japanese influence that made me that, but it was like spiritual realities that exist, which can absolutely be incorporated in that sort of way of thinking. Um, but the thing is, as Jesus said, you're either with me or you're against me. And now I wasn't for Jesus, but I was never against Jesus. I was like, well, Jesus was a pretty cool dude. Whatever he did, whatever he didn't do, whether he existed, whether he came back from the dead or not back at the time, right? I never had a problem with him. I had a problem with the people that pretended to teach me about him because they were all Novus Ordo. And guess what? My little radar for bullshit was right because it was a lie. And they're liars and deceivers. But when I found out the real Christianity, the real Catholicism, I was like, wait a fucking minute. This has got nothing to do with what these fuckers are saying. And by the way, now that I'm reading the Bible and understanding this stuff, well, this makes perfect sense. And then again, you're talking to a guy who read like physics and chemistry books for fun when I was in school, and you're talking to a guy who read this twice for fun, for my own purposes, not because I was trying to prove a point, or just trying to figure out how does it work. And this whole book makes absolute sense. This is all how you apply all the dogma of the Catholic Church from the year 0 to 1917, all in here, one book. And it makes perfect sense. I've spent more than 30 years looking at legal contracts. Roman law is the epitome of all legal language. Any law that is not Roman law is a degradation of Roman law and of actual human principles of justice and truth and correctness. And this is all Roman law. It's beautiful. There is no contradiction. There is no misinterpretation that you can possibly have. And again, it stood the test of time. Since 1917 until 1958, when Pope Pius XII died, the last valid pope, there was one tiny change made to Part 2 of Canon 1099. That's it. And that's the Pope himself did it. So in 40 years, they sent it out to the world. The world could criticize and whatever. They had a college of cardinals just to make sure that there was nothing wrong. There was no corrections made. The job that they did to build this, they collected over 26,000 documents to make sure that the whole dogma of the church that they put in here was all correct. It didn't contradict anything, blah, blah, blah. So you've got 2,000 years worth of documentation of legalized thought. When I say legalized, I mean logical thought, because it's not lawyers. It's not lawyer arguing. It's maths arguing. It's pure philosophy, clear philosophy. Not like, but maybe we're somebody's dream. That's bullshit. That's not philosophy. Philosophy is a story of life. Philosophy encompasses logic and maths, real philosophy. And this is the study of truth, because those documents did not contradict each other for 2,000 years. That's an amazing achievement. Do you know of any other human institution that over a period of 2,000 years has not like contradicted itself or fucked it, And that's with having humans in it. Corrupt popes, gay popes, anti-popes, over 40 of them before 1958. And by the way, after 1958, it is still the only code of canon law, because then in 1983, the fake pretend Catholics made another code of canon law, which, if you try and read it, invalidates itself. It's like the UN Charter on Human Rights. Read that shit. It's fucking nonsense. It invalidates itself. It is an illogical document, which when you read one part of it, it's invalidated by another part of it that like is completely directly opposite of it. So educate yourself, don't, you know. It's very good. So yes, sacrifice is the thing, but the thing is, what does that mean? It means that once you know the truth, you're going to fight for it. You're going to be on that side of it. And if there's somebody trying to pretend otherwise, your sacrifice is in fighting for it. So Is it really a sacrifice? It's a duty. It's an honor. It's something to be proud of, really. It's like saying, "Oh, I sacrifice for my children." Well, why wouldn't you? You know, what the fuck? It's like Woolly Ram says, "I suppose the only legitimate in-between position is while you are actively searching for the truth." Yes, which I was since age 7, when I decided that I was an atheist, because the truth, inverted commas, that they presented to me was absolutely insane, which was Novus Ordo. So as I said, no, well, if that's what being religious means, then fuck you and the horse you rode in on. But then by the age of 16, I was like, well, that's not just the only religion. There's many others. So I started to look into other shit, and like I said, I've read all sorts of books. I've read the Quran. I've read the Bhagavad Gita. I've read like books on philosophy. I've read some New Age stuff. I've literally read thousands of books. So, and I've covered a lot of them in the whole philosophy sort of department. Woolly Ram says, honest atheism is a temporary condition. Yes, it is. It has to be. Because if you can do logic or maths, atheism gets destroyed pretty quick. Benderman says, I don't attend church. Honestly, I would go ortho with a sympathy for Catholicism, but it is an issue of proximity. I don't know of real Catholic churches near me. So you could say sacrifice is duty. Yeah, it is duty. Absolutely. So luxvera.org. There you go. If you go to the site, it'll tell you where is the nearest Sede church to you. Now, Benderman, I'm going to talk to you directly right now, because what you're saying is, well, yes, these guys can actually do proper maths, like 2 and 2 is 4, and 2 times 4 is 8, and 4 times 4 is 16, and it all works, yeah. But these guys are closer to me, and they're only saying that 2 and 2 is purple. They kind of agree with all the other numbers, except for 2 and 2 is purple, which means that 2 times 4 is like green. But apart from that, they're doing good maths. How many truths are there? How many truths are there in your world? I'll let you in a little secret. Even if you don't believe in anything, as an intellectual concept, let's say you're an atheist, it doesn't matter. Let's just do the intellectual exercise, thought experiment, as they call them, like Tesla used to do to build his machines. This is a lot easier. If God exists, okay, let's posit that thing. Let's say God exists. Or let's even start from God doesn't exist. Well, if God doesn't exist, are there any rules? No. No rules. No ethics. There's no reason why you shouldn't rape little children if that's what gives you pleasure, because there's no right or wrong. There's no God. There's no moral authority. You can say, well, raping little kids is wrong. Is it? Based on what? The fact that you don't like it? The fact that you think it's disgusting and awful, which it is, of course. But there is no moral principle why doing whatever the hell you want is any worse or better than doing so-called good deeds. There is literally no moral imperative at all. Now, that doesn't mean that, don't get that wrong. I'm not saying that you need God to choose a good act over a bad act. I don't necessarily think you do need God. But what I'm saying is that there is no basis for morality at all. If there is no God, there isn't. So you can do whatever the fuck you like. Now, conversely, if there is a God, regardless of which God, regardless of what type of God, guess what? There is a God, there are rules, God's rules. If that God also happens to be just, merciful, and loving, you can bet your ass that there are rules, and they are absolute fucking rules, and they're crystal clear rules, because a just, merciful, loving God would not just throw you in here and say, fuck you, there's no way for you to figure out what's the truth, good luck. No, you do have to seek, and you shall find. So, yeah, Benderman is honest. We can say this is an honest man. Benderman says, I was never good at math, so it sounds close enough to me. I agree. But you're shit at math, son. So it's not good enough. And when you're saying they're not in my province, who cares? The difference here is between going to somebody who's true or going to somebody that is wrong, at best, if not an intentional deceiver. There's a couple, they're now a couple, they're married, they're in Finland. They've come to visit me, I know them personally, who traveled to another country to get baptized and confirmed and married. Because there isn't a Sedic church in Finland. You're complaining about it not being in your province. What kind of lazy ass pussy excuse is that? Get off your ass, go find out. So travel to another country. So travel for a couple of hours. There are people that travel for 3 hours one way every Sunday to go to Mass. Do you think they're doing it because they're like stupid? No. So, Willie Ram says, what was your impression from reading the Quran? It's a very good question. One I haven't been asked before. My impression reading the Quran is that it is quite a deceptive text because it's a bit like if you're a naive guy listening to Jordan Peterson, there can be some very cool sounding things in there. And so if your general character is to be a pretty decent human being and you're like, oh yeah, that's cool. Oh yeah, that makes sense. Oh yeah, you could go along with it thinking, yeah, I just have to. And especially, you're an innocent, naive guy who's not a genius, right? It's not a fucking, no rocket scientists in there. And again, no rocket scientists that I'm aware of in Islam, and no scientists that I'm aware of. And now there's going to be a whole bunch of people, but the Arabs taught it how to read and write. No, they did not. What happened is Catholics, Catholics civilized the whole world, including the whole Middle East, because by the year 670, the whole Middle East was doing maths and logic and science, which the Catholics, there's no other Christianity, Catholics, with a pope and everything, civilized that whole area. Then Islam came about, murdered, destroyed, and took over all the towns and cities where the Catholics were, but kept alive the scribes, the guys who could do shit, and then taught them and forced them to learn Arabic so that these guys, then they started to translate their works into Arabic. And then when the stuff came into Catholicism years later, like or into Europe, in parts that either had lost Christianity or forgot about Christianity, or like were like flashy because it's new stuff. Oh, these guys are conquerors; they must know something. Thought like, oh wow, look at this shit. They've got abacuses and oh, they write numbers and numerals in this fancy, cool way. It was all Catholic. They just, converted it. It's like me learning to speak Russian and then translating Dante in Russian, and you know, bringing it back to Italy, like the average Italian now is like, oh, and say, oh, look at the greatest Russian, literature. It's Italian, So that's what happened. They didn't invent shit. So, but for the average person who's pretty simple-minded, and keep in mind, the average person, because of, satanic influence, is prone to binary thinking. So he's like, oh, well, this is all sounding pretty cool. Oh, and then there's this one specific rule we gotta, oh, and then there's this other rule. Yeah, black and white shit. Yeah, because, yeah, God has rules. Yeah, of course. And it's God's rules. So we just follow them. Fuck it. Doesn't matter what he says or why. We don't think, just act, just do, So I could see how it's sort of seductive to a people, and especially if you're raised in it, and you could, like what people do, you could look at the parts that like you like best and seem pretty decent or whatever, and sort of go, yeah, that's a cool one. But the thing about Islam is that it is historically, it's considered the timing on which it was written. The various parts are written at different times, and it's like, oh, what's valid here gets invalidated by something that's written later. So it's like, be nice to everyone until you're more powerful than them, then take them over and rape their wives and kill their kids. So that's kind of like how Muslims behave because of it. Now, have I met really decent people that were nominally Muslim? Yes. Have I met very decent people that are nominally Protestants? Yes. Have I met decent people that are nominally Catholic but are really Novus Ordo? Yes. Are any of these people actual, proper, full-on Muslims that know and believe and follow their entire religion? No. Ditto the Protestant, ditto the Catholic, Novus Ordo Catholic. The truth is one, and the way is narrow. I mean, read your Bible. Almost everybody will be deceived. Almost everybody will end up in hell. Almost everybody gets it wrong. And I'm not sitting here telling you, I'm the one who got it right, haha. Like the Jehovah's Witnesses, the whatever, think, or the Mormons, whoever it is, that thinks there's only 144,000 of us going to heaven. And, it's like, I remember my brother, somebody he knew, like the Jehovah's Witnesses or whoever these guys were, came knocking his door, like, oh, and like he just opened the door and go like, what number are you? The guy goes, what? What number are you? Because they believe that they get to go to heaven only if they convert. The more people they convert, the more likely they're to be in that number. So the guy goes like, what? What number are you? Of the 144,000, what's your number? Don't come back here until you know your number. Fuck off. It's like, it's quite funny, I thought. Yeah, there you go. Woolly Ram says, this brings to mind Arabic numerals, which I recall are from India. Do we know how they came about in India? I don't know that they are from India. I haven't looked into it that much. But a really interesting place I went to in Kazakhstan was a museum that had different types of alphabets and different types of writing from different countries in the world. And oh my God, it was the most complete set of squiggles that I've ever seen. And there were hundreds of them. Oh, I didn't even know. I was aware of things like Linear B and like hieroglyphics, and yes, I knew there was runes and all sorts. But man, I'm telling you that the amount of different writings that constitutes alphabets and languages really are a lot more than you think, and the influences of them were obvious even to like the untrained eye. You could tell that like, oh wait, this thing looks pretty similar to that, but quite a few of the letters are different. There's stuff in Portugal that looks like it's possibly from the original Atlantean, and it's like no one has figured it out what these things mean. It's like really very interesting study, the study of languages and so on. I've completely gone off track. I'm now talking about Atlantis, and I forget what I was speaking about. But mind you, I've been going over 2 hours again, so no wonder I'm a little bit tired. So I don't know if I'll be able to do another stream before Christmas. So if I don't, have a very happy, Merry Christmas and a brilliant and good start to 2024. If you still need to buy some of my books, please go to the e-store if you want the ebooks, and go to Amazon if you want the hard copies. I am not going to be putting any ebooks anymore on Amazon, and eventually when I get around to doing the things, because I want them done properly. That was one of the reasons like some of my books also didn't make it into ebooks. Eventually, when I get the time and so on, like almost all my books, or most of my books, will definitely be ebooks. Not all of them, I don't think, but a big bunch of them. So thank you all for being here and making an entertaining chat. And if I do not see you guys before the new year, like, have a very, very happy Christmas and New Year. Let's see. But if you guys have questions, shoot them now or hold your peace until next year. Benderman goes, I understand the criticism of my dedication. I simply will not travel for 12 hours to attend a church cited by Lux Vera. Do you personally approve of attendance of another church that is not Catholic? No. Why would I? I don't. Absolutely not. And remember that as a Catholic, you're not to attend other churches. You're not to go into, you're not supposed to go and pray to a fake church and a fake God. Like, why would you do that? Of course not. Benderman, no, it's no worries at all, and I'm glad you've got an open mind and you're an honest dude. And you can always look at the stream from the beginning if you want. It's gonna be saved. Good day says good night and God bless. Thank you very much. And Woolly Ram says Merry Christmas and Merry Christmas to all of you. Thank God that Jesus came to save all of us, and let us remember Him, since it's going to be His birthday soon. Thank you all and good night. And God bless every one of you. Also the Gammas, you're not forgotten. You're not forgotten at all. May God bless every one of you, honestly. Good night.